This is Australia's last frontier. The size of Victoria, yet home to only 15,000 people, Cape York is a world of undiscovered plants and animals.
There's so many places here that you can just get right away. You can feel like there's no one else for miles and miles. It's also got some of the best flora and fauna in Australia, some of the most spectacular rivers and watercourses in Australia. It's just a wonderful part to be in.
All this is under threat, from grand plans for property and tourist development, even a spaceport. But before that happens, scientists want a full study into what lives here. Scientists from around the nation have come to Cape York for what, incredibly, is the first expedition ever mounted in the wet season, which is when this place really comes alive.
How did we measure this guy?
Yeah, was it 1.9 metres?
Queensland's Royal Geographical Society brought in the vehicles and equipment before the wet season, when the rivers flood, making the Cape impossible to reach except by air.
Yeah, look at this way. Got that on the road last night. Stunner.
Our base, the Heathlands Ranger Station, close to the top of the Cape. It's night time, but up here it's still hot and sweaty. The temperature, mid-30s. Humidity, high 90s. We ignore cane toads. We're after native animals, on the move at night to dodge predators. Spotlights are used to search for reflections from the animal's eyes. A snake on the side of the road. These people know their stuff, so this one's handled with extreme caution.
So what is it, Steve?
Northern death adder.
Poisonous?
Yep, very. Yeah, give you a nasty little bite.
The animal is kept for a photo session tomorrow. We never saw it again. It escaped and is probably still hiding somewhere in the car. Into the night, the list of animals never or rarely seen this far north grew and grew. A white-lipped green tree frog.
He's the biggest tree frog in Australia.
A melamis, which is a small native rat.
Hang on, I can't see. Look, stop moving him. Look at his tail. No, it is a melamis.
A rare gecko, a type of lizard.
No detailed ecological work has been done on these sort of animals.
And an owl called a Papuan frogmouth. But the zoologists weren't the only ones out at night, because here, like everywhere, nighttime is when the bugs come out. For an entomologist, this is also your busy period, especially when you've got a light to attract them. It's a bit hard to ask insects why they're attracted to light, but it's thought some daytime insects get confused and think it's morning already, while others that navigate by the moon get blown off course. Whatever the reason, up here these scientists have been gathering several hundred different species every night. At home, an insect is something we swat, spray or stomp on. Out here, nothing could survive without them. Leaves wouldn't be gobbled up, digested and returned to the soil. Flowers wouldn't be pollinated, and birds would starve. In just 2 weeks, these scientists have discovered vast numbers of totally new species, insects never seen before, except possibly by the Aborigines who once lived here. How many new species do you think you may well end up completely discovering?
Oh, I think you could be thinking in hundreds. It'll take a long time to appreciate that. Many of the collections we're making are concentrating on very small things, insects the size of tea leaves, and there are only handfuls of specialists in Australia and around the world that can work on this material. It'll take time, but I think you're talking that sort of number.
Okay, so perhaps you found more than 100 new species of insects, but does that really matter? I mean, what is the significance of that?
Well, if there are 80,000 species of insects in Australia, that's a really conservative estimate, and they're chewing and preying on each other. Anybody can understand that that's a tremendous component of the ecosystem. Now, you can't possibly manage a system like that or make any conservation decisions on these sorts of woodlands, these heaths, if you haven't got some sort of a grasp of the diversity.
Next morning, we found someone behaving very oddly. It's called squeaking. It's what bird freak Wayne Longmore from the Queensland Museum does to attract their attention.
Birds are very inquisitive. They wander in, have a quick look, and then race off. Now, when they come into my squeaking, they're actually presenting themselves to me for observation, and then I can follow a particular bird or just watch his reaction to my squeaking.
Wayne has spotted 120 different species of birds, half as many again as anyone knew lived up here. That alone must justify the whole expedition. Botanists from the National Botanical Gardens in Canberra would say the same about their discoveries. You're looking at orchids no one has ever seen before. All up, 7 new species of orchids were found. As expeditions go, this one was pretty well lubricated. For the scientists, working, living and drinking together meant the big picture was sketched out very quickly.
And then the penny dropped and people made proper preparations.
If Cape York is to be thrown open to development, we need to first understand its total ecology, how everything fits together.
We'll get one before the end of the trip, I'm sure.
In just 2 weeks, the scientists have discovered new plants and bugs and seen animals nobody knew lived up here. And the expedition's got another 7 weeks to run.
Brown snake.
Any information that we learn about our environment is important. The fact that they've found so many new orchids or so many new insects means that that area becomes a significant area. And I think that most people would agree that, we've still got a lot more to learn about this Earth.